So now within our style CSS file, I've actually brought in all that styling that I had for the navigation bar. So now we can see that we do have our navigation bar. We still have that div styling that we had applied earlier, and we're going to actually be removing that. So when we go into our style sheet, you see here that the basic structure of it is that we have here, we're identifying the selector. So these we're using to actually identify the different elements in HTML, and they actually coincide. So you can see here that divs are coinciding with the div tags, and nav coincides with anything that's contained within that nav tag. And then further here we've got another selector, so we're being more specific on our selectors. So we're applying it to the UL tag in HTML. So this goes to nav and UL, and it doesn't necessarily get applied to every single nav. So if we had another nav, we wouldn't, and if we didn't have a UL within it, then there wouldn't be any styling that gets applied to it. And within here, we do have, within each selector, we have what's known as properties. And all of these properties, so these were the same thing that when we were looking at HTML, that they were part of the attributes. So they were values that were contained within those style attributes within HTML. So here they're known as properties, and each one of these properties is separated out with a colon. So these are the two dots there, and it's separated out with the value that's equal to that property. So it's not an equal sign. And then just much as we were looking at the styles before, that it just gets separated out with this semicolon. And when we look at it as well, we've got a whole bunch of different units here. So we've got pix. So if you're familiar with HTML, pix is just going to be the pixel width for each one of these units. So margin is going to be 20 pix. So it's giving us 20 pixels of margin around each div. We also, when we go down, so we use that for borders as well. We use that for font size, or we can use it for font size, and we can use EM as well. So EM is a unit that gets calculated. EM is dependent on the size of the screen. So this will adjust and it will look different on mobile devices, and it's just more for the uniformity of having font sizes come out the same on different devices. So you can just as easily write this as 16 pix, and EM1 is equal to 16, and I believe EM.2 would probably be equal to roughly around 19 pix. So again, the 19 pix doesn't adjust as easily on mobile devices, and that's why we've started to use EM. Also, you can do these percentages. So if we had a width of 120, but if we want to do maybe a width, so we're going to only change the divs to a width of 50%. So we only want them to go 50% across the screen, and this is what's known as fluid as well. So we do have our set widths that we can use. So these are going to be set widths here, where we've got a width of a certain amount of pixels that we want these navigation buttons to be. And then just down below, we've got what we're looking at as a set a fluid width here, so it's only 50% of the available spacing. So if we were to hide this, the console, you can see that it actually does adjust with that sizing as well. And these fluid widths are good for mobile design, because you can see here that it always keeps that 50%. So of course our images, they're not responsive yet, so we're going to work on that up and coming. But we can see here that it does resize and it keeps 50%. So if we did something like for images, we always want them to only be 100%. And when I go back out and I refresh that, it's going to put that image in as 100% of the available width. And that's how you would use more of a kind of a responsive look where it actually shrinks down. And as you can see, because we're using that EM text, even when it's shrinking down, it's trying to keep that same text size in correlation with what the screen width is. And this is actually going to be, it's going to be more noticeable if you're going in on a mobile device, or if you've got a mobile testing browser set up where you can test and see the way that it looks on mobile. So these are all the different units that you can use. So pix, percentage, EM, and these are commonly used to set the different sizes. And also keeping in mind when you are doing a fluid design, use the percentages. And sometimes it does get a little bit confusing when you're mix and matching pix and percentages and EMs, but always keep in mind that you're trying to accomplish a certain look on your website, so one might make more sense than the other, and again, you sometimes have to mix and match them depending on what you want to achieve within your website.